When I get in here to start to work on the hip muscles and get them positioned, I am not going to just go down the list. I'm not going to get in there and create the tensor fascia latae position, because there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot that still has to be arranged. So it's better you go in with move elastic, and you work with something like the gluteus medius, right? Because you know where the gluteus medius's origins are. So the origins, of course, along the ilium, and the insertion, of course, the head of the humerus, the great trochanter, head of the femur. So hard to miss that, right? I mean, that's going to be pretty straightforward. So do the easy, understandable stuff first. So just redraw its connection and make sure it's just make sure it's connected, right? So I'm going to come in and spend special time, and its easiest thing is you just inflate, throw it together and then inflate it. Let's talk about muscle action though. Okay, there's not a lot happening here. The leg is flowing backwards. Okay, so we're still pretty much at rest here. The other leg is moving up, so there's going to be some different directionality happening there. But right now, I'm just going to be worrying about its origin and insertion. Okay, get it sitting on that and coming close to the ends of the ilium, wings of the ilium. Okay, the rest of it I won't know until I put the gluteus maximus on. But now, in terms of the other side, where our leg is pulling up, okay, we still have the same insertion, right? Same insertion, same origins, but now we need to make sure that we've got some movement happening here. And so that's going to cause us to need to track, let's do that in red, track a bit of some curvature with compression happening kind of in that front region and then stretching in the back. So the easiest way to do this, of course, is with transpose. Okay, make sure you mask it, and then you might want to just draw your action line off to the side like I just did. And the goal is to get the insertion placed. It's not to make the curve look pretty. I mean, look at that. That's a disaster. But this is 2 seconds of work nobody's ever going to see. Well, I mean, you guys are seeing it. So you're seeing my beautiful disaster. But in general, nobody else. So once we have that beautiful disaster, we can come into the shaping of it. And so I'm just smoothing the whole thing out. And if you wanted, you could use clay buildup, and you just start to adjust it from there. Okay, gluteus maximus. Turn that medius on. You're going to want to know where all these things are going. Move elastic. Leg is moving back in this direction. So of course that's going to cause a little bit of a bump as this pushes back, whether it's being contracted or not. Contraction is going to increase the size, as is just being pulled back. So move elastic. Make sure symmetry's off. Yeah, leave a little room for the ilium. Cool. Let's come around here to the front. I'm going to just have that wrap around a little, and then we're going to have to stretch this. Easiest way to stretch it is grabbing this tip with Move Elastic and just pull it in. But how much of the length here are we going to have that take up? How much of the length does it take up here? Looks like that's about 1/4. So it's not a bad measure for me to use. Moving over to the other side. Boom, boom, half, fourth, fourth. So we're not far off. Just pull it on up. Or, as the case may be, over. Okay, so part of this connects to the femur. And then part of this connects to the iliotibial band. I'm going to just smooth and inflate that area that's just getting a little unfriendly. Okay. We're going to need the tensor fasciae latae and the iliotibial band to really get the rest of that. So gluteus maximus is on, tensor fasciae latae. Back to the Move Elastic brush. And this is the tensor fasciae latae. In this particular pose, this is contracting up. You can do this yourself. You just lift your leg and feel that tensor fasciae latae. And that is one of the muscles driving this. So you need to increase its size and make sure symmetry is off. And move it on up. Yeah. Of course, the origin stays, right? You know, make sure it's staying up against that origin. Something like that. Okay, and now we're going to have the medius to adjust. So if, like me, you didn't do that correctly, then make sure you spread that out now and get that better orientated. Don't lose that, but you may have to spread wider over the great trochanter. Okay, tensor fasciae latae, iliotibial band. All right, so Move Elastic. Make sure symmetry is off, and it's pretty set for me to just come in and connect the great trochanter and the tensor fasciae latae. All right, remembering that, you know, we need to have that great trochanter right there. So I'm just going to push it in the gluteus medius just so it's visible. Then come back to the iliotibial band and drop it a little bit below the head of it so that I know it's there. So this part is pretty straightforward, but we need to adjust for what's happening at the bent knee. So the question becomes, you know, how does it bend, right? Let's take a couple of scenarios. Would it come down, 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 and then slowly bend as it came in and connected to the tibial tuberosity? Let's do that in a green line. Or is it some sort of straight mechanic, or is it, you know, is it just going straight here and really screwing up with the hamstrings and everything else. Well, first, let's make sure we know where the head of the feet, or the, let's just make sure we know where the epicondyles are for the femur. Okay, so it's that green line right there. Just draw a mental note right there on the other side of them. There's going to be two things that happen that you need to be aware of. One, there's just a little portion of the iliotibial band you could say is coming around and connecting to the patella, to the whole part of the quadriceps that come into the tip of the patella and then down to the tibial tuberosity. But then immediately after that, this takes a diagonal slant. Okay, so it's a straight shot, then it tilts down as though it's kind of breaking right there and connects to the tibial tuberosity. Okay, so if you keep that simple mechanical notion in mind, it's going to be quite easy. So let's get in and do that. Make sure that symmetry is off. You're at the lowest subdivision level. Control, click and drag, and then just select that, bend it down, Control, click and drag, and then doom. There you go. Control, click and drag. We can use move elastic, and we can just move these things out so they're outside the bone itself. Okay, smooth out any craziness. And then just make sure that it's really connecting. Okay. I would like to imitate the epicondyles. So I'll have the tendon kind of boom, boom. Pull it in a little bit. Pull it out, and then out. Takes a little getting used to use the move elastic brush like that. But there we go. Okay, and you'll also notice that it's kind of diving right into what's going to also be the tibial tuberosity. Not the tibial tuberosity, but the tibialis. Sorry. And I don't want it to. I want it to be kind of straight up and down. But let's see what happens when we put the quadriceps in. So we've got the iliotibial set up, and as well as the tensor fascia latae. We've got these guys kind of set up and arranged. But we got to make one change. Okay, so I hope you get to this section too. Do not turn this off. All right, with the tensor fascia latae, we did a straight bicep kind of contraction. All right, and that's not going to actually work because the fibers aren't really connected to the iliotibial band in the same way. So you really got to look for these things occasionally. The iliotibial band, not the iliotibial band, but the tensor fascia latae is going to come down like it normally does, but then it starts to bend. And so this is really important because this is a really hard form that happens in people. It's just really tough, but you'll see this kind of odd shape right there when they bend their legs. And we need to make sure that we do that. So, move brush. Make sure you're in with the tensor fascia latae. Try the move elastic. Just a big fan of that brush. Okay. So I'm going to give it a top and a side. So it's going to get it, and then come in and really form that shape that happens. Okay. We'll do a lot more shaping once we have the rectus femoris in there as well. Cool. Alright, let's do the other side. We're still in the tensor fasciae latae, and since it's pulled back, there's no real action happening with the tensor fasciae latae except for that it's stretching back. That's what's happening. Okay, gluteus medius. Just put those right next to each other. And then the iliotibial band. And a lot of what's happening with the iliotibial band has to do with just some rotation. So let's come in, control click and drag, control click to blur it. Alright. And drag this down. Make sure that you can see the great trochanter in there. Alright, let me go into the gluteus maximus. Move brush. Okay. Back into the iliotibial band and really make sure these guys connect. Could be that a little bit of stretching is happening. This is something I really want the rectus femoris to be there to finalize, but I'll do that for now. So I'd say we have the hip structure in place. There's going to be some extra form that gets developed in different places, but we really need the upper thighs to be put in.